Elliott, who is chair of Republicans Overseas. Also with us is Alana Horowitz-Satlin from the Huffington Post, Inga Kedge-Trump from the chair of Democrats Abroad. That's the Democratic Party's official body for the Americans living outside the US. Amy Pope is a former advisor to President Barack Obama. And also with us, Marianne Schneider-Petzing, a fellow of the US programme at Chatham House. Which is Foreign Affairs think tank. What a busy sofa. Lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for coming in. I guess we have to start by talking about these explosive comments which have come out today with this interview that President Trump has done with the Sun newspaper. Sarah, do you think this is disrespectful? This is helpful at the beginning of a trip to the UK?
His comments on Brexit.
Well, his comments on everything.
Yeah. Well, I
Brexit,
think
Sadiq Khan, no trade deals, so much to get into.
I mean, I think everyone was prepared for to be unpredictable, for him to be unpredictable. So I think this is very much in the tradition of of President Trump. And I quite frankly think he was looking forward to establishing the beginnings of a free trade deal with the Prime Minister. But then her white paper has come out, and it doesn't look like it's very likely that he'll be able to do that. So I think he was disappointed that they couldn't further that along in the process.
Inga, do you think he went about it the right way?
I don't know, but what I can tell you is that Donald Trump is like the world's worst guest. He comes, he arrives late, he insults the host, he makes fun of the guests. You know, it's sort of a shocking amount of behavior that we see, but for Americans like me and for my fellow Americans overseas, it's something we're really accustomed to seeing. There's a lot of bluster, and then what you have to see is his people later have to make up for the things that he said. So I have to say I'm not surprised. It's just a pattern of what we've seen before.
And you're nodding.
I don't think it's the most helpful way to begin a relationship that is incredibly important to the United States. Right, we all know that right now...
Is it important? Because that's really interesting, because lots of people here in the UK will wonder whether that is an important relationship.
Well, given his comments, one might wonder, but in reality, the United Kingdom is an important voice for the United States and Europe. We agree with the United Kingdom on a whole range of issues, from security to defense to environmental issues, and there's a whole range of places where the US and the UK have been able to form a really important alliance that's ultimately in the best interest of the United States.
Amy, this is clearly a different approach that President Trump is adopting to Barack Obama.
But, also to add to Amy's comments on the special relationship, let's not forget the strong economic ties that are also binding the United States and the United Kingdom together. For the United States, it's only the 7th largest trading partner. For the United Kingdom, though, the United States is very much the single most important export country. So there is really, a strong economic partnership, and a potential free trade deal between the United States and the United Kingdom, I think, would further strengthen it. So I don't think it's quite off the table yet. But I would say that this is part of Trump's negotiation tactics. So he's throwing this grenade into the meeting with Theresa May to throw the United Kingdom off balance and then potentially extract concessions down the line in future negotiations.
So this is almost like, Alan, the North Korea strategy, then?
I wouldn't necessarily say that.
I just mean in the sense that it's, Rocket Man, and then suddenly we're having a meeting and we're all friends.
I wouldn't say that as much of a strategy. So much as just, Trump being Trump. And I think we've seen this time and time again where he comes into a diplomatic meeting of sorts, throws a proverbial bomb into the mix, creates a situation, and then sort of just solves it by pretending that something that was already there could be attributed to him. We saw him do that with NATO. We saw him do that with North Korea. He hasn't, with neither of those meetings did he really get anything concrete out of them, but he proclaimed them both to be victories. So I expect something similar to happen out of this meeting too. And the thing about Theresa May is that she's in a really weak position right now. So she really needs his help, and so she has an interest in just sort of letting him get away with all of it.
How much interest is there back in the United States watching this visit? How much coverage will it get?
I actually think that it's probably getting far more coverage here in the UK. Last night I was going through the papers in the Midwest. It wasn't hitting the front page of many of the papers. People care much more about the opioid crisis, about what's happening with the economy. It's just not going to resonate in the same way. But I think that's dangerous because I do believe the US and the UK have so much that they can do that's very productive and in the best interests of both countries. And so there's real value in understanding why this relationship matters.
Inga, do you think that President Trump is going to be bothered, affected by what we're expecting to be large-scale protests today in London?
Well, that's a good question, but my real interest is the audience of, Americans who have to find out that there's midterms to vote in. Whether he's upset by seeing a giant balloon floating as there has been started, or whether he's going to be upset by the numbers, and as we know, he's not brilliant at crowd numbers, is difficult to say. But what I am interested in is those people here who need to know that we've got midterms elections. That's important. And what's important about that is we can have a real opposition by electing a Democratic House, and that is going to make the difference. So whether he's upset or not, I'm indifferent. I would like to think that he knows. My understanding is he knows what numbers are there. And by gosh, he's got a fence around him so he can be protected, if you've seen that as well. But the real
He's also not
audience
going to be
I
in
want-
London. He's
Yes,
left London now.
exactly.
Well, I mean, but that's part of the strategy, though, is that
Yes.
I think that he knew for a long time that there was going to be strong opposition.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got really, really weak poll numbers in the UK in general, with only 11% of people thinking that he's a good president.
So many people are getting in touch with us this morning.
Sure, but
supporting
that's
President Trump.
anecdotal because-
Sure, no, I get that.
Yeah,
but
I mean-
we are getting lots of supportive messages.
I'm sure you are, but it's a very large country, and that's an anecdotal suggestion. We know that polling shows that 67% of people think he's doing a bad or terrible job as president, and he knew that going in. He knew that he had tensions with. He'd publicly attacked the mayor of London. He'd had tensions with Theresa May. People were not happy about the Britain First retweet. So I think that he knew that he was not going to be popular in London, and I think that he deliberately circumvented the city as much as possible.
Sarah, do you think he will be upset at the scale of the protests that we're expecting?
I can't say really. I mean, I think he might. I think he expects it. To be honest, I think he
Does he
expects.
thrive on it?
I think he kind of does. And when his detractors come at him, he just doubles down. You know, and every city he goes to, in fact, the White House almost daily, there are protests out his house. So this is something very common for the president. But what I find about them is that they're very disproportionate to any kind of crime he's allegedly committed. I mean, Donald Trump may be a surly character, but he hasn't broken any laws. And the Supreme Court has upheld his travel ban, and it was actually the Ninth Circuit Court that upheld the detention center for children separating the families at the border. So, you know,
You need to commit a crime to be the subject of protest, though.
no,
I mean,
you don't. But this size, I mean, you've had the president of China got a state visit at Buckingham Palace. You have Erdogan, who's completely taken away free media and has arrested academics and journalists. I mean, Donald Trump has done none of that.
Does it make you cross then, the scale of protests that I expected?
Because I know that it doesn't represent the entire nation. I know that it represents the far left in this city in particular.
I don't think it's the far left, to be
Yeah,
honest.
have you
argue with
listened to
that.
the
Yeah.
Stop Trump Coalition? Have you listened to their
I know the far left is part of this, but when you have 67% of the country disapproving of what he's doing, I mean that's the 67% is not the far left. There's a lot of Tories that don't think that he's doing a great job either. And I understand that what you're saying. And I think that you made really great points that the U.S. has hosted much more condemnable figures than Donald Trump for sure. But I think that is kind of separate to the point. That's tangential. That people expect a diplomatic
but why
relationship.
are people getting more upset about, he's kind of a machismo guy, rather than Erdogan, who's killed people?
I think some of
know?
the issues that are really troubling are the fact that he is pushing away key allies. The fact that he'd go into NATO and people weren't quite sure where he would end up. The fact that he's coming to the UK and we're not sure whether or not that's going to be a positive thing for the UK or for the US. and the fact that he's been touting the meeting with Putin as the easiest thing on his agenda. That's what should really trouble people, because that's about more than Trump. That is about American interest, American political interest, strategic interest, and that's where we need to keep our eye.
Right, but I think that this is it's a lot of headlines and hysteria, and that's what Trump likes to sort of focus on. But I like to focus on what he's actually doing, and we have North Korea at the table. And
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think what he's doing is a lot of the reason why people are protesting. I mean, it's not just the rhetoric, right? It's not. I mean, the rhetoric is inflammatory.
I'm going to jump in, and I'm really sorry to do this, but we have to go and speak to some protesters soon, which are all gathering outside, and we've got so much to fit in the next
200,000
time.
estimated.
Well, it's the estimate. We'll
so.
see what will happen later on. Thank you all so much.
Okay,
Thank you so
thank you.
much for coming in. Well, still to come, thousands of people are gathering for anti-Trump protests. We're going to be amongst the crowds and speaking to some of those who are taking part. And we'll bring you the latest on Donald Trump's first visit to the UK as US President after that black tie affair overnight. His itinerary today includes watching a joint counter-terrorism exercise by British and US Special Forces, a meeting also with the Foreign Secretary at Chequers. Time now for the latest news. Here's Rachel Schofield.
The BBC News headlines this morning. The government has insisted that President Trump's visit to the UK is going well, despite Mr Trump saying that Theresa May's Brexit plans would probably kill any prospect of a trade deal with the US. The president, seen here with the US ambassador this morning, openly criticised Mrs May for the manner in which she had conducted Brexit negotiations in an interview with the Sun newspaper. Later today, Mr Trump and Mrs May